The selection. The crystalline chamber of the Valari High Council shimmered with refracted starlight, its massive spires catching the golden glow from Valari Prime's twin suns. Rows upon rows of dignitaries from a dozen species filled the curved galleries, their voices hushed in reverence for the ancient ritual that was about to unfold. At the center of the dome, a raised circular platform pulsed with slow, rhythmic light, the ancestral heart of the Valari Dominion. Lieutenant Daniel Cross shifted uncomfortably in his formal diplomatic uniform, its sharp angles unfamiliar and too rigid for his earth-born frame. He stood among a small delegation from Earth, one of the first to be invited to witness a rite that predates most human history. Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood at his side, her expression schooled into stoic neutrality, though Daniel could sense the tension beneath. "Remarkable, isn't it?" she whispered. 3,000 years of tradition, and now humans are finally here to witness it. Daniel nodded, eyes drawn to the towering figure standing at the center of the platform, Commander Vexera. Even among the tall, regal Valari, she stood out. Over 7 feet of sculpted muscle and grace, her silver-blue skin shimmered under the ceremonial lights. She wore armor etched with the sigils of conquest, but her face, though strikingly angular, held an unreadable calm. Her violet eyes swept slowly over the chamber with predatory stillness. High Counselor Cathra, an elder whose facial markings denoted centuries of service, stepped forward. He lifted the ceremonial staff, carved from obsidian and bone. "Commander Vexera of the 7th Yao Fleet," he intoned. "Conqueror of the Titan Nebula, shield of the Nerix expanse. You have earned the right of selection. Speak your choice before the council." Silence fell over the room. Daniel swallowed. He'd read the briefings. The selection was a sacred bonding ritual where a Valari warrior chose a life partner in front of the council. It was unheard of for any outsider to be selected, ever. Vexera stepped forward. Her movements were fluid, her aura commanding. She turned slowly, her gaze sweeping the high chamber, passing Valari nobles, coalition envoys, even the dignitaries from the Avari Syndicate, before locking onto Daniel. "I choose Lieutenant Daniel Cross of Earth." The chamber erupted. Voices rose in a cacophony of disbelief, outrage, and astonishment. Daniel's breath hitched. He heard someone nearby curse in their native dialect. The echo of Vexera's words still hung in the air. Ambassador Vasquez grabbed his arm, her grip tight. "What did you do?" she hissed. "Nothing," Daniel managed, throat dry. "I've never even spoken to her." But as he said it, fragments surfaced, moments he had dismissed. Vexera watching him during the trade delegation's opening session. The intensity of her gaze as he delivered his presentation on shared resource policy. The quiet nod she gave when he defused a brewing argument between 2 planetary governors. High Counselor Cathra's voice rose, thunderous. "This is unprecedented. No off-worlder has ever been chosen. The bond is sacred and reserved for Valari alone." Vexera raised her hand, and silence returned. Her tone was calm, yet carried the steel of command. "The law speaks of choosing a mate worthy of strength, honor, and intellect. It does not specify species." Her eyes remained locked with Daniel's. "I have observed Lieutenant Cross. His decisions during negotiation prevented 3 conflicts. His words show wisdom, his actions courage. I claim my right." The council chamber buzzed anew, more restrained but still electric with tension. Cathra took a slow breath. "Commander, if he refuses, both of you will face consequences. The bond must be accepted. If not, you will be cast out." Daniel felt the air thicken. He hadn't planned for this. He was a diplomat, not a pawn in a centuries-old tradition. Later, in a private chamber veiled in crystal glass and soft light, Daniel sat across from High Counselor Cathra, with Vasquez pacing behind. "If he refuses," Cathra said again, "he faces permanent exile from all Valari space. Commander Vexera would lose her rank, her titles, her honor. She would become cavilled, one the Valari do not speak of. Vasquez stepped in. This isn't a negotiation. This is coercion. Before Cathra could respond, the chime of entry sounded. Vexera entered. She was no longer armored. Her robes were made of iridescent cloth that clung like smoke to her tall frame. Her presence filled the room. I request a private audience with my chosen. Cathra hesitated, then nodded. It is your right. They left. Vexera crossed the room and stood near the window, gazing at the twin suns. You must think me mad, she said softly. I think I'm missing something, Daniel replied, approaching cautiously. She turned. For the first time, Daniel saw something beyond the warrior facade. Doubt. Hope. Your people fascinate me. Your resilience. Your adaptability. In you, I saw something unexpected. Not just intellect. Not just strength. Wonder. She approached him, slow and steady. I have fought battles my whole life. I know what I am. But when you spoke of Earth's oceans, when you described rain and salt and sky, I felt something else. Something I do not have a word for. Daniel felt his resistance falter. Her sincerity was disarming. If I agree, he said, what does the bond entail? She met his eyes. We share thoughts. Memories. Desires. The bond is not just symbolic. It merges us. Permanently. And if I refuse? I lose everything. But I would not want you to accept out of obligation. She reached out. Her hand brushed his. You would gain much. Understanding, strength, perception. The bond enhances what is already within. He looked at her hand in his, then into her eyes. I never expected this. Neither did I, she whispered. And Daniel knew, not from logic or fear, but from instinct, that this choice, strange as it seemed, might just be the most important of his life. Then I guess we'll figure it out together. Her smile was slight, but radiant. The ceremony begins at dawn. The bond. Dawn arrived on Valari Prime like the breath of a dreaming god, the twin suns cresting the horizon in hues of molten lavender and gold, casting an ethereal glow over the temple of eternal bonds. Nestled in the heart of the crystalline cliffs overlooking the sky-shield gulf, the temple shimmered with ancient energy. For millennia, it had witnessed the union of warriors and their chosen mates. Today, for the first time in recorded history, it would join a Valari to a human. Lieutenant Daniel Cross stood at the edge of the temple's ceremonial platform, clothed in flowing robes of bioluminescent silk that shimmered with each heartbeat. The fabric, woven from the threads of the Kural spider native to the upper caverns of Valari Prime, clung lightly to his form and shifted hues with his emotions. Right now, it rippled in nervous blue. Behind him, the human delegation watched in measured silence. Ambassador Vasquez looked both alarmed and resigned. She had fought for years to gain the trust of the Valari Dominion, and now that trust teetered on a precipice. Whether Daniel accepted this bond or not would affect more than his future. It could reshape galactic diplomacy. He turned his eyes forward. Vexera stood at the opposite end of the platform, radiant in ceremonial armor laced with energy filaments. Her silver-blue skin glowed subtly in the rising light. Her violet eyes remained fixed on him, unwavering, determined, and yet, beneath it all, uncertain. A hush fell as the temple keeper emerged. Elder Nerissa, whose skin bore intricate traceries of bioluminescent ink, raised her gnarled staff. Today, she intoned, we stand witness to a sacred union. Two spirits from distant stars, drawn together not by duty, but by choice. Murmurs rustled through the audience. Humans, Valari, and several allied species bore witness. The tension was electric. Nerissa looked to Daniel. Lieutenant Daniel Cross of Earth. Do you come willingly to this bond? His heart hammered. I do, he said, voice clear. Commander Vexera of the 7th Yao Fleet, Nerissa continued. Do you claim this being as your eternal mate? With all that I am, Vexera said. Nerissa lifted a chalice of luminous Tereth wine, the sacred liquid that initiated the mind link. Then drink, she said. And let your souls open. Daniel took the chalice first. The liquid was warm, effervescent, tasting like starlight and ozone. It rushed through his body like fire and lightning, illuminating something dormant within him. Vexera drank next, never breaking eye contact. Nerissa gestured toward the draped alcove behind the altar. Enter as two, she said. Emerge as one. Inside the alcove, soft cushions lined the floor. Ambient light from bioluminescent crystals pulsed gently, echoing the rhythm of two beating hearts. Vexera faced him. For the first time, her voice faltered slightly. I don't know how this will affect you, she admitted. I've never bonded with another species. We go where no one has gone before. Then we go together, Daniel said, reaching out. Their fingers intertwined. Instantly, a jolt of energy surged between them. The first wave of the bond hit like a meteor storm. Suddenly, Daniel saw through Vexera's eyes. Memories flashed, training with twin blades at 5 years old, her first kill at 12, the pride of her mother, the sorrow of losing a sister in battle. He felt her rage, her loneliness, her yearning. Vexera staggered, gasping as Daniel's memories washed into her, a rainy afternoon on Earth as a boy, his mother's laughter, the aching isolation of boarding school, the thrill of his first successful negotiation. His wonder at the stars. His fear of not being enough. The bond deepened. Emotions tangled. Past and present became one. They leaned into each other. Daniel cupped her face, and she leaned into his touch like a pilgrim finding home. Their lips met. And then the physical link sealed the rest. Their minds, bodies, and spirits aligned in perfect synchrony. It was not mere intimacy, it was fusion. Stars exploded behind Daniel's eyelids. He felt every breath she took, every muscle shiver. They collapsed into each other afterward, limbs entangled, thoughts still bleeding over the shared channel. Is it done? He asked, breathless. We are one, Vexera murmured. Permanently. When they emerged, the crowd fell to reverent silence. Something in Daniel had changed visibly, his eyes now held shifting flecks of silver. His posture had altered subtly, more fluid, more attuned. Nerissa lifted her staff. The bond is sealed. Let it be recorded in the chronicles of the galaxy. Applause followed. Polite from some, enthusiastic from others. A few remained stonily silent. That night, aboard the Valera, Vexera's personal flagship, Daniel stood before a mirror in the private chambers granted to them. His skin shimmered faintly. When he closed his eyes, he could still feel her in his thoughts, her presence like a comforting pressure against his mind. Vexera stepped in from the corridor, her expression a mix of awe and concern. You're changing already. What am I becoming? Something new, she said softly. He turned to her. I can hear crew conversations across the ship, he said. I can feel the magnetic pulse of the engine. She moved to him, pressed a hand to his chest. Your neural capacity is expanding. This has never happened before. No human has bonded like this. He exhaled slowly. Will I survive it? I won't let you face it alone. He reached for her, and in their shared mind space, warmth flowed. Safety. Understanding. Possibility. And Daniel Cross knew this was only the beginning. Integration. 3 days had passed since the bond. Aboard the Valari flagship Valera, Lieutenant Daniel Cross lay in the quiet darkness of Vexera's quarters, his mind swimming with new senses. Every heartbeat of the ship, every voice down distant corridors, even the subtle shift in the gravitational matrix of the vessel as it maneuvered, he could feel it all. Not hear, not see, but sense, as if the ship itself whispered to him. Vexera stirred beside him, her silver-blue skin dim in the ambient starlight that filtered through the panoramic viewport. Daniel reached out instinctively, not just with his hand but with his thoughts. She responded without hesitation, their bond humming like a quiet current between their minds. "Your perception stabilizes quicker than expected," she murmured, voice still heavy with sleep. "It's like learning to breathe a new kind of air," he replied. "Everything is different. Louder. Clearer." Vexera sat up, her gaze serious now. "We must inform the temple scholars. And the Science Council. No human has undergone such neural restructuring. Your experience could redefine our understanding of cross-species bonds." "And what if they decide it was a mistake?" Daniel asked. She turned to face him, her expression resolute. "Then they would be wrong. And I will make them see it." By midday, Daniel stood in the central observation chamber of the Valera, surrounded by sleek glass consoles and glyph-etched holodisplays. Scientists and data scribes circled him with curiosity and apprehension. Across from them stood Elder Derek, the ship's chief neural architect, her head crested with long tendrils that glowed faintly blue. "His synaptic structures are reorganizing at an exponential rate," she said to Vexera, tapping through a floating data stream. "This is not adaptation. It is evolution. The bond has triggered a cascade of genetic shifts." "Can it be controlled?" Vexera asked. Kexhari hesitated. "Perhaps. But the transformation is still accelerating. Lieutenant Cross may be becoming something beyond human." Daniel stood still, absorbing every word. He could already feel the differences. His reflexes, his cognitive processing, his capacity to multitask complex data, all heightened. And yet it wasn't frightening. It was intoxicating. "We need time to study this," Kexhari added. "And discretion. Political elements are watching this union closely." Those political elements soon made themselves known. In the War Council chamber aboard the Valera, Vexera stood before a panel of high-ranking Valari generals, the hollowed chamber echoing with judgment. Beside her, Daniel kept his expression blank, though the shared tension in their bond made his skin tingle. The central voice belonged to General Shore, an older, hardline military leader whose face was marked with deep ceremonial scars. He had never hidden his distaste for off-worlders. "This human," Shore said, gesturing to Daniel, "has become an anomaly. A threat. No Valari has ever exhibited such changes from a bonding. What if this union destabilizes not just biology, but command structures? Culture? Hierarchy? Are you suggesting Daniel is dangerous?" Vexera challenged. "I am stating that he is unknown," Shore growled. "And the unknown must be contained." Daniel spoke then, his voice level. "Contain me, and you destroy the very alliance your people worked so hard to build. I didn't ask for these changes, but I will use them to support the peace we came here to secure. Not to undermine it." Shore sneered. Bold words from a species that only recently stepped into the stars. Vexera took one step forward, her voice dropping into the cold edge she used on the battlefield. "Lieutenant Cross is my bondmate. Question him, and you question me." The chamber went silent. Shore leaned back slowly. "So be it. But when your human becomes uncontrollable, remember whose judgment you dismissed." That night, Vexera and Daniel returned to their private quarters. He paced the floor, hands clenched. "They think I'm a threat. They don't trust me. They fear you," Vexera said. "Fear is often a prelude to reverence." "I didn't ask for this power," Daniel said, turning to face her. "I came to negotiate trade agreements. I was supposed to be a bridge. Now I'm mutating." Vexera crossed the room and took his hand. "Then be the bridge still," she said softly. "A stronger bridge. Unshakable. You are not losing yourself. You are becoming more of who you were meant to be." He stared at her, into her mind, into the echo of her soul that he now carried within himself. How do you always know the right thing to say? I don't, she whispered. I only know you. The days that followed brought uneasy calm. More tests. More scrutiny. Daniel's abilities continued to grow, a mild telekinetic resonance, brief but sharp flashes of precognition, and an expanding empathy field that let him sense not just thoughts, but the emotional currents of nearby minds. On the 6th day after the bond, during a diplomatic hearing between the Valari and a delegation from the Kalari Confederacy, a sabotage attempt was uncovered. Poison in the ceremonial wine. One of the Kalari envoys collapsed, foaming at the mouth. Chaos erupted. Daniel, who had tasted the emotional dissonance in the saboteur seconds before the act, leapt forward, subduing the attacker with precision that shocked even the guards. In the aftermath, as medics and peacekeepers swarmed the chamber, Daniel stood before the Kalari delegation and said only one thing. This is not who we are. Let this be the last such act. Or let it be the first step to a better alliance. Your choice. Across the Valera, in every corridor, his name began to change. From off-worlder. To bonded. To something more. Vexera watched him from the bridge one evening, her expression unreadable. He joined her. What are you thinking? He asked. That you were never meant to stay small, she said. You were meant to shake stars. He looked out at the constellation of vessels arrayed beyond the viewport. And what happens if the stars try to shake back? Vexera reached for his hand. Then we shake harder. The uprising. An alarm tore through the calm of the Valera. Red lights flared across the command deck, followed by a deep, resonating tone of high alert. Commander Vexera shot to her feet from the war table, her violet eyes narrowing. Status, she barked. Multiple vessels approaching at attack vectors, Tactical Officer Jiren called out, hands flying across his console. Transponders confirm, it's the 19th Black Sun Battalion. Valari ships, but they're not answering hails. Vexera's jaw tightened. Traitors. Sure must be moving. Lieutenant Daniel Cross entered the bridge just as the main screen displayed the formation, 12 Black Sun warships, flanking a Dread-class cruiser. The air on the Valera seemed to grow heavier. They're powering weapons, Jiren confirmed. Vexera and Daniel exchanged a glance. No words were necessary. Through the bond, they felt the same thing, betrayal, tension, and a bracing surge of unity. Open all frequencies, Vexera ordered. This is Commander Vexera of the 7th Yao Fleet. Cease your approach. Return to standard formation or be considered hostile. Silence answered. Then, a new voice crackled through the speakers. It was General Shore. You were warned, Vexera. Your defiance has endangered our people. That human abomination beside you threatens the sanctity of everything we are. You do this in defiance of the Council, Vexera replied, steel in her voice. The Council is blind. I will preserve our legacy. Shore cut the channel, they're charging main cannons, Jiren said, voice strained. Then so are we, Vexera snapped. The first volley struck the Valera's forward shields. Daniel nearly collapsed as the shockwave surged through the vessel, but his senses had evolved. His body reacted faster than his mind, catching himself against a bulkhead. Across the bridge, systems flickered. Crew shouted. Yet through it all, Daniel could sense the emotions of everyone on board, fear, courage, determination. Target their engines, Vexera commanded. Disable, don't destroy. Aye, Commander. The Valera danced between energy blasts, sleek and agile under Vexera's command. Each decision she made came to Daniel an instant before she gave it. Their minds worked as one. They're trying to isolate us from the fleet, Vexera murmured. Cut our communications. Then let's make our own signal, Daniel said. He moved to the comms interface, closed his eyes, and focused. Through their bond, he tapped into the ship's energy network. a mesh of psionic nodes that regulated the vessel's core systems. He let his awareness flow into the grid, into the psionic relay tower above the bridge. And then he sent a pulse. Instantly, the signal jumped across the void. The rest of the 7th Yao fleet received it, a sharp burst of encoded emotion, loyalty, truth, unity. Incoming support, Jiren reported. Admiral Tursa's wing has broken formation. They're moving to defend us. The battle raged for hours. On the edge of the Varnal Drift, the void lit up with blue and violet fire. The Valera, bleeding plasma and flame, refused to fall. Daniel moved between engineering and the bridge like a phantom, stabilizing systems with raw intuition. He redirected coolant through sealed decks, rerouted emergency energy through psi conduits, even fused a ruptured life support relay with his bare hand, channeling psionic energy until the metal melted. In the heart of combat, Vexera held the line. One by one, the Black Sun warships fell back or were disabled. When the dread cruiser fired its final salvo and tried to warp out, Daniel projected a gravity net, a new skill he didn't know he possessed, anchoring the ship in place long enough for the Valera to hit its drive core with a focus stunner. Shore's flagship went dark. And the battle ended. Silence settled over the command deck. Vexera leaned heavily against a console, armor scorched, a shallow cut trailing down her right temple. Daniel approached her, his skin glowing faintly, his breath slow and measured. "You held the fleet," she said. "No," Daniel answered, offering her a hand. "We held it." He helped her stand. Around them, the crew began to cheer. Not for the bond. Not for the anomaly. For the leaders who had refused to break. Later, in the stillness of their quarters, Vexera lay against Daniel's chest, her fingers tracing the edges of a fresh scar on his forearm. "You were magnificent," she whispered. "I didn't know what I was doing," he said. "You knew enough." He turned his head toward the stars beyond the glass. "This won't be the end." "No," Vexera agreed. "But it's a beginning. One the galaxy won't forget." At the edge of known space, another ship drifted. Inside its cloaked hull, a silent chamber lit with cold violet. An observer, neither Valari nor human, watched the battle logs. Its eyes flickered with mechanical precision. A hand made of obsidian alloy tapped once against a console. "The convergence accelerates," it murmured. "Initiate protocol, Genesis phase." Lights flared. Across the stars, something ancient stirred. Ascension. Valari Prime. For days after the Battle of Varnal Drift, storm clouds churned across the sky above the capital spires, casting silver-blue shadows over the council citadel. Banners of the Valari Dominion fluttered in the wind, and the plaza outside the citadel swelled with thousands of beings. Valari, humans, Kalari, and countless others stood together, not in protest, but in anticipation. Inside the Grand Chamber, Daniel Cross stood before the Galactic Tribunal. Flanked by Vexera and Ambassador Vasquez, he faced the gaze of 100 delegates, some stern, others awed. His eyes, now almost entirely shot through with shimmering silver, were calm. Counselor Revan, a neutral arbiter from the Kaldari Circle, spoke first. "Lieutenant Cross. The tribunal convenes to evaluate the consequences of your union with Commander Vexera. Your transformation has alarmed many. Others see promise. Today we decide whether you are anomaly, threat, or bridge." Daniel stepped forward. He did not bow. Instead, he spoke plainly, "I did not come here to change your world. I came to serve mine. Diplomacy was the mission. Peace was the goal. But I bonded with one of yours, not because it was strategic, but because it was real." He turned slightly, eyes meeting Vexera's. "The bond didn't make me something else. It revealed something that was already inside me, that is inside every human. A capacity to grow. To become more." Murmurs echoed through the chamber. Daniel continued. "Yes, I have changed. Yes, I possess abilities I didn't before. But I do not use them for dominance. I use them for unity. For defense. I helped protect the Valari from internal division. And I would do it again. Counselor Revan glanced toward the tribunal. If the tribunal were to declare your bond invalid, would you relinquish your place here? Daniel's voice did not waver. If that is your decision, I will return to Earth. But let the galaxy remember this, the only thing I did was love someone. And it made us both stronger. Silence followed. A heavy, charged silence. Then High Counselor Cathra stood. We are Valari, he said, his voice slow and measured. We revere tradition. But we also revere strength. We revere change when it brings truth. What happened at Varnal Drift was not tradition. It was honor. And love. He turned to the tribunal. Let the record show, the bond stands. A wave of relief rippled across the chamber. Vexera closed her eyes briefly, her grip on Daniel's hand tightening. Counselor Revan nodded, then so it shall be. Lieutenant Cross, you and Commander Vexera are hereby recognized as sovereign representatives of a new diplomatic order, ambassadors of convergence. The first union of its kind. And perhaps, not the last. Later that evening, atop the golden balcony of the Citadel, Daniel and Vexera stood alone. The crowd below cheered. He looked at her, his bondmate, his warrior. Did you ever think we'd get here? Not in 1,000 lifetimes, she said, smiling. And yet, here we are. You're not human anymore, she said softly. No, but I'm not human either. I'm something new. You are Daniel. That is enough. They leaned into each other, foreheads touching, breath shared. Their thoughts intertwined. No walls, no secrets, only truth. Somewhere in the void. Initiate Phase 2, the observer said. Target confirmed, Daniel Cross. Prepare the progenitor array. The experiment has begun. Back on Valari Prime. Beneath the stars, Vexera took Daniel's hand and led him from the balcony. Toward the council hall. Toward a future they could not yet see. The galaxy had watched a warrior claim a human. And now, it would witness what came next. The end.